Hello everyone! We take a step into the past this time, with Railway 1 grand reopening, with a fresh coat of blue paint, and blood soon. So have you been struggling against the all renewed stations, want to optimize your turn count, or are dreading the return of the worst enemy in the game? In any case, this guide is here for that. First, I'll go into details about the mechanics of this railway, and then go into each station's details and recommended team comps. I'll also give some general advice at the end. And for mechanics, let's do a bit of history. Well, pretty recent one. Railway 1 was the first railway introduced to the game a few months after its release. It didn't last that long and was just very simple, pretty much a dungeon chaining 13 fights, keeping ego resources, HP and SP between fights, sinners resetting HP and SP when not participating to a fight. You picked a loadout and then proceeded with a glorified boss rush. Quite a few things were different then. Some game mechanics like offense-defense level calculations, making insufferable tanks, bringing up to 5 sinners to the fight, giving them slots each turn, up dice 3 only, all those good things. Now back to the present. Most of those were changed, sort of. The railway is still 13 stations, being 13 different fights of one or several waves, no chaining on enemies. But you have access to the chain battle system and have to choose all 12 sinners, so no more double slot shenanigans. However, still only 5 sinners will be on the field at once, while backup having SP buff on entry, and allies giving ego resources on death like they do now. You now automatically recover HP between stations, while SP stays the same, meaning you can chain stations with 45 SP. Well, unlikely for one of them. But you can mostly consider it as a succession of fights where you don't have to fill back your SP as much, lucky you. You can even change your loadout before each fight to take the most fitting one. How kind. However, don't let this boost your confidence too much, for the difficulty has been adjusted so you would still feel the pain. Somewhat. And, well, that's it for mechanics. A very simple experience allowing you to test your managerial skills, Managerbud. So let's move directly into trials you'll face on this journey. First, the roaches. Well, I mean G-Corp members. Remember them? Pushovers. Well, they still are. Not many mechanics, 1 coin skills making first clashes literal coin flips, and not much damage. There are 2 waves of them, 5 in the first and 4 in the second, with a manager in the second one. This station is one of 3 with simple enemies, something to warm you up and fill your SP and Sin gauge. If you feel like going for some funny sacrifice shenanigans, Superbia is available. They have just one little annoying passive, restoring HP when below 50%, so you have to make sure to crush the roaches properly when low HP. And talking about crushing, they are fatal weak to blunt. So for team recommendations, a bunch of blunt IDs with fast or no setup is probably your best bet. They are also weak to Wrath mostly, then Sloth, so if you can get said scenes, that's even better. Burn and Tremor teams tend to have those scenes and blunt, so IDs there are a good choice. Here is a team example. Due to the number of targets, I doubt you have time to build up any actual status on them, so don't rely on it. Also, due to the number of targets, IDs with AoE are recommended, like Regret Faust, LC Faust for bombing purposes, or Capomersault if you can proc his skill 3 AoE. Egos as well are recommended, but because it is the first fight, your number of Sin resources won't be that big yet. Also, due to your number of Sinners being reduced, you won't get that many of them either, so be careful on how you want to use them, but if you wanna use a Superbia or something, here are a few good blunt AoEs for it, with a mention for Crushbound Past having the word crush into it. As a last word of warning for stations like this one with enemy waves, pause and charge are pretty much the only statuses you can rely on if you want to actually build a keyword, though I don't think it's necessary. This station doesn't need much more explanations, so let's move on to the second one, Los Mariachis, and some tissues for some reason. This station has one of the rawest fights you'll encounter, ever. Passives are very limited, and actions are very basic. The most I can say is that there are evades and counters, so careful about that, I guess. Ida is in the second wave, and she isn't playing, but with careful management, it should be fine. Again, very simple fight. The resistances are divided this time between Slash and Pierce, with the Mariachis being the most present with Slash and the THUs with Pierce. The latter can be pretty tanky, so put some power into it. Both are resistant to Blunt, so avoid it. They're all weak to Gluttony first, then Lust, so betting on it is a good choice as well. Again, due to the number of targets, AoEs are recommended. Picking into Rupture and Bleed archetypes are a few good choices possible, especially among Blood Fiends or Ashos. This time you should have access to more ego choices hopefully, and contrary to the first railway, the choices are now quite a bit more varied and quite strong in both Gluttony and Lust departments. Now, as I said, there are 3 stations of regular enemies. So the third station is obviously the first time no fight! And it's Blupo! The Blubbering Toad. And now we have gimmicks. And the main one is that you can say goodbye to your sanity. First, all of its attacks reduce their target's SP, and then breaking its eyes also heavily reduce the SP of the sinner closer to corrosion. So yeah, chances of corrosion are pretty high. It has 3 body parts, the left eye, the right eye, and the body. As I said, breaking an eye brings down SP, and it has 2 eyes, so careful about that. In its skill rotation, it has a skill to heal your SP though, so you can try to abuse it. The main way to deal with it is focusing on one eye in particular to burst down the frog ASAP, while being careful of your sanity and preferably clashing with its attacks. Be also careful of your clashes, since there is a nasty unbreakable coin inflicting big sinking. If you break both eyes, you do have an event check that you want to succeed, first because it will be staggered and the sinner doing the check will recover SP, and mostly because if you fail, the sinner will corrode. So yeah, its parts have different weaknesses and resistances, with Envy being the common weakness. You would rather want Pierce as well for the eyes. Then each eye has one more weakness, being a resistance for the other. The right one is weak to Wrath, and the left to Gloom. If you want to play Envy, which has quite a bit of both Envy and Gloom, you would want to focus the left eye. So Charge is overall an archetype that I recommend, even if Pierce isn't the most present type, though once broken, the eyes are weak to everything. A few Lius with both Wrath and Envy can also do the work. This time you can use keywords, and might even should. So Burn is overall a good bet, as well as the usual culprits. Going for sinking on the left eye with Codrodia and Solemn Lament Yisang is a good bet as well, but again, be careful to target the right eye. The left one, but it's the right one, you get it. I mentioned that if you wanna play Codrodia and minus SP IDs in general, be careful since you would have to bring SP back up if you wanna change IDs later on. Also, careful of corrosions. Eyes stop attacking once broken, figures, so bleed isn't too recommended, unless you wanna focus the body for some reason. If you see this skill before, just win clash against it early and burst the eye. Again, break the eyes, clash the skills, and pop the frog. After that nice interlude and a cruel loss of SP, back to the actual last regular enemy fight, the Inquisition! Dun, dun, dun. So you have the baby ones, the middle ones, the big ones, and Guido. Again. Like Station 2, not much to worry about. The bigger the enemy, the stronger they are, and that's about it. They inflict nails if they can hit you. Just win your clashes and all will be fine. They have this weird mix of both plus and minus coins, so be careful about that as well, I guess. They are fatally weak to Blunt and Sloth, and then to Gluttony, so what you use in Station 1 can still work, with more of a focus on Sloth. Once more, AoE IDs are recommended, though the ones fitting the criterias here aren't as numerous, and you will have more luck on Egos, with again a mention for Crush bound past, even more than before. Let's not dwell too much on basic encounters, because we have a lot of gimmicks to go through now. And I hope you like beating animals, because after the frog, it's the dog! Alleyway Watchdog can be simple if you're playing it safe, and, well, safe otherwise as well. First, the Amno has 4 different parts, almost the highest. The head, the body, the telepole, and the person, whatever. They have 2 sets of resistances, and which you target matters. The body will have the majority of the attacks, and is the one with the most HP, and the head will use a strong AoE from time to time. The Amno charges itself with lightning when attacking, becoming fully charged at 5 or above, unleashing powerful attacks with its two other parts, with an event for a powerful nuke at 10. The way to deal with it is to hit the telepole, which will reduce its lightning stacks, removing them entirely when staggered or broken. Once broken, the telepole part is severed, so no more hitting it, and all passives are rendered null pretty much, leaving it in its most simple state to deal with. The person can be severed as well, but there's not much point in going for it. So the main way to deal with the Amno is supposedly to rush down the telepole and break it ASAP. If you're worried about its skills, staggering or breaking it will cancel all of the Amno's attacks for the turn, so if you know it's gonna happen before it attacks, it's safe to just go for it. That's the mechanic. However, since it gains lightning after attacking, that means if it doesn't attack, it won't get lightning. Therefore, just clashing with its attacks and bursting down the body is effectively the best way to deal with it. No matter which method you wanna go through, since the telepole and person are severable, you will have to target the body or the head. The body shares weaknesses with the telepole, so you can make the transition easily, or if you can stagger the head early, it can be good. The body and telepole are weak to blunt and sloth, again, while the head and person are weak to slash and wrath, so up to you to decide, but again, I recommend going for blunt on the telepole. All are weak to pride, so while there aren't many poised blunt stuff, going for it and pride is a good choice, and a good full stop snipe can still deal massive damage, as well as a few A-shows. If you wanna rush a single part with a status like Rupture, you can, but otherwise, due to the abundance of parts and the fact that you might want to rush the telepole, building a status wouldn't be my main recommendation outside of poise, though you could easily build Tremor on the body, Burn on the head, or both on one. AoE Egos can be good to inflict lots of damage on all parts at once, mostly with the recommended scenes and types. Alright, let's move on to the next station, meeting KQE1J23, or simply the bot. It has only one part, and the pattern is simple. First, it will spend turns gaining charge until it's at 10. Then it will use an unclashable grab that will stagger the target for 3 turns, which will be your Sinner with the highest HP at the start of the turn. If you evade it, it will restart, otherwise the stagger won't move for 2 turns, and the Amno will protect the first turn before attacking the captive Sinner on the following turn. You can try to attack and stagger it before. Its blocks give it protection on use, so you can try dealing them to the last attacks, or wait until the following turn when it gets a bunch of fragile. After releasing its target, it will repeat the charging process. However, the second or later time that it uses its grab, it will become clashable, and winning the clash will cause it to bug out, doing nothing on the 2 following turns, while summoning the Heart of the Townsfolk. It's pretty weak, and destroying it will damage and stagger KQE, also removing all its grab patterns. Now, as if it's more optimal to target the heart, that's a question. It will stagger KQE, so you can unleash a more powerful burst on it on the following turn. If you don't need it, however, or just base your damage on status anyway, you might just ignore the heart. Outside its pattern, the boss is simple enough to deal with, since you just have to hit its body until it's dead. Pierce, Lust, and Gloom are its weaknesses, so Bleed and Sinking IDs have high priority, especially with Bloodfiends on one side and Codrodia plus Lament Yisang on the other. Overall, just win your clashes, up to you to deal with its mechanics and evade the first grab or not. Due to the single part, keywords work well, though for Bleed, you don't really want it to spend several turns using guard skills. Following up next on Station 7, clap your hands for the fish! Here comes the Headless Ictis. This Amno can be a bit complicated to understand if you wanna go into the details. For the basics, it has 4 parts: the tail, the left and right legs, and the sack. The legs will try to clap you, reducing your power. The tail will try to slap you with Tail Whip, inflicting fragile like it's a Pokemon move, and the body will try to murder you. The tail and the body are severable, while the other 2 breakable. It has a status, Blood Sack, which is supposed to make the body more resistant to Wrath and weaker to Gloom, and should make it unleash Blood Cannon on turn 3 if neither the body nor the tail was broken. It will get Fluid Sack afterwards, which will heal it, and we'll switch back to Blood Sack at 4 stacks if the tail is not broken. Yes, I said it's a bit complicated, but overall the body is a very annoying part for clashing and damage, so you might want to get rid of it to make your life easier. The tail can be annoying as well, but not as much. Overall, you will want to deal most of the damage on one of the legs, which can easily be staggered and then broken to increase their physical weaknesses. So for damage, you'd mostly want Wrath and Sloth, which are the leg's weaknesses. If you wanna break the body, you would want some Pierce and Lust, and avoid dumping your Wrath skills on it. So burn IDs like Capo Mersault or Firefist Gregor are great once the legs are weak to blunt, and the same can be said with Bleed IDs with Bloodfiends, or Tremor IDs like Nighthawk's Gregor or Molar Otis. Due to the number of parts, AoEs are once again recommended, more on the Sloth and Pierce side for consistency, but statuses focused on the one leg can also make quick work of the Amno, though thinking won't like hitting this one too much. Overall, just focus the legs, and take the first few turns popping the sack if you don't feel like you can deal with it fast enough, or it's annoying clashes. Once you're done with it, we can move on to the 8th station with, again, the Inquisitor. Holy shit, is that nothing there? So now we fight 3 corroded Inquisitors, which might remind yourself of a tough Canto 3 fight. They have one gimmick in the form of instincts. When you hit them, it's reduced, and when you don't for a turn, it increases while healing them. At 4+, well, they just use stronger skills, but they get a bunch of both protection and attack power from it. There are 2 with lower HP, starting at 2 instincts, and the bigger one starting with 4. What you want is just hit each at least once per turn to avoid them healing and reducing their stacks bit by bit. Simple. Well, there's just 2 small problems. First, if the big one has a counter that they use when below 4 instincts every 2 turns, which is very special. Indeed, this counter will copy the skill proccing it. So if you use a skill 3 on it, you will really not like what's gonna happen. Unless you want to. Therefore, be very careful about win rating this. You would likely want the first thing to hit the Inquisitor about to counter to be a small skill from someone who can tank a Lust/counter, so you can clash and avoid it healing. And note that when winning against Unbreakable Coins, the skill will still be used, and therefore not the counters, so you can just clash with the skill without caring about the counters. The second problem is, they now get a bunch of instincts from just using their skills. So you can and should prevent them from healing at least, but you won't be able to prevent them to get 5 attack power and protection, which is annoying. The easiest way to deal with them is 1x1 with strong skills, while using AoEs to hit them all a lot, preferably using your best skills when they have the least protection. The order is up to you and how you deal with counters. You might want to just avoid hitting the strong one while it's countering, and burst him when he is not. Unless you can stagger him. They are all Wrath, but mostly Envy weak, and you would rather use Blunt than Slash. Charge is a usable archetype here, with notably QH Dawn having a nice AoE. Again, multiple targets, so burn is questionable without AoEs like Kisank's for Smash Flame and Magic Bullet, but the IDs are good for damage. Same for other statuses. AoE egos are good, with some example here, though again, be very careful about the counters when using them. You really don't want an ego to hit them. And now on to the next station. Oh, did I say there were 3 fights with regular enemies? Sorry, I lied, there's the 4th. Here's a K-Corp security again. And there are 3 waves of them, featuring 4 types of enemies. The first 2 waves are kinda basic. They heal every turn, so it's a bit annoying, but if you can rush them down, you're fine. They all have the same scene resistances, however the majority are weak to blunt, so you might like AoE IDs or egos based on Pride, Wrath and Sloth mostly, and then focus on the blunt ones, then the slash ones. The last wave is composed of 2 harder units. They have more HP and have a very annoying tendency to heal a lot when they're not at full HP. It's only 3 turns though, but it's annoying stalling, and they are pretty dangerous, rolling high and dealing high damage. Overall, you want way more burst on this one, so focusing the same scenes as earlier on Slash. Because of this, you might want to actually take mostly slash IDs and leave the blunt and just AoE work to Egos. Blade Lineage members are very good for this, as well as AE shows and poise IDs in general, then focusing around more IDs based around Wrath and Sloth like Capo Salt or Firefist Gregor. Now we're moving on to Station 10, featuring the worst enemy ever. A nightmare for all early players. It's a snake, the fucking snake! Alright, let me rant a bit about this thing. Back then, they completely randomized the defense values and made them atrociously high for 3 enemies, being the 3 walls of the railway. And this one was the worst of them. 72 defense level when we were level 30. Dealing damage to it without hitting weaknesses was a nightmare. Well, even when hitting them. It's so iconic that one of the 2 gifts in MD for this theme pack is based on it. Not only that, but this boss has 3 parts, the body and both arms. The body being targetable once both arms are broken. You have to break both arms within 2 turns, or the broken one regenerates to the other one's HP. But the worst part, when below half HP, hitting it will give you poison, an annoying status, so then it becomes a race against the clock to finish it. Well, finishing it isn't too hard since it gets quite fragile when the arms are broken, but also even more poison. So if you're not fast enough and get staggered from poison, it's GG, and just killing it in general was just a pain. And now? Well, they did it again! It has a pretty unreasonable defense level, nice clashes, and a lot of scary unbreakable coins on its last phase, so deal with it the best you can. It has an instinct mechanic as well that you reduce by winning some clashes, and at 0 will just defend for a turn. It comes with 2 lap dogs though, or just dogs to be precise. They just use a skill due to skill limitations and gain instincts when hit. When high enough, they become way stronger but more fragile. Best thing is probably to quickly deal with them first by enraging them and bursting them down. You might want to not have both enrage at once and deal with them one by one. Maybe. The snake is Pierce and Sloth weak, while the dogs are Slash and Gloom weak. However, both are weak to Wrath, so it might be a more consistent scene to go for. Like previous stations, going for high damage instead of status build-up is a safer bet due to the sheer number of targets. IDs and Egos with AoE are once again advised, as well as good burst options to get rid of each target quickly. I do have to mention a technique involving Time Moratorium, allowing you to deal enough damage at once to the snake on one arm to kill it without having to worry about its most horrible mechanics, which is pretty neat, working well with its Sloth weakness, which you can capitalize with Reverb as well. Alright, let's move on to Station 11. You like the dog? You like the fish? Well, good for you! Here are both at the same time! Fortunately, they do have lower HP, and their total number of actions are limited to a maximum shared between them. They work in the same way as before, so I'm not gonna explain it again. Which of the 2 you want to target first is up to you, though I would say that the dog's teleport mechanic increases bit by bit if it can attack, while the Ectis throwing you a blood cannon is pretty much fixed on turn 3. Again, you want to focus the legs on the Ectis, the body or the head on the Watchdog, and potentially break the sack or the teleport. For weaknesses, they complement each other somewhat, at least for physical types, but nothing a small stagger can deal with. Wrath and Sloth are overall still pretty good, so the usual people having those. AoE Eagles with more than 5 attack weight are extremely recommended for this fight, due to there being 8 body parts in play, even if they can have more than 1 slot weight. If I haven't mentioned Crushbound fast enough, let me mention it again, and it has never been so appropriate. Just be careful that when one of them dies, the other will have its actions fully available again. If you want to rush them, you might want to avoid clashes against body parts you don't want to target, or use high attack weight skills against them so you can still hit your main targets. Anyway, penultimate station. It is this time of the year. Let's stop this. It's Cromer. If you haven't fought her in MD enough, or just forgot how she works when you have to actually care, let me give you a reminder. In her first phase, she just uses a few attack skills and annoying evade. About every 2 turns she will use the gripping, which is the skill that you have to watch out for, as its target will be staggered on the following turn and will take way more damage, so be careful that it's targeting either your tank or lower damage dealer. She will full target it on the following turn as well, and the second time will use I Shall Claim Your Life, which is the second skill you have to watch out for, as it rolls pretty nicely, and if she loses a clash with it, she will get staggered, so pretty nice to win against at the start of the turn. If you lose it though, the target gets staggered. Otherwise the fight is pretty simple, rinse and repeat your damage rotation until you've dealt with her. She doesn't have weaknesses and only resistances to blunt and lust, so bring a bit whatever you want to deal with her, but you might want to base yourself on phase 2. Statuses work pretty well for this one and the next, bleed for this one especially due to the sheer number of coins, even if lust is resisted for bleed IDs. Once at 1 HP, she will transform into this monstrosity with 3 parts, the maw, and both arms. She has some strong skills to avoid, some inflicting a lot of paralysis, but nothing important mechanically. What you have to look out for are statuses, ecstatic and purity. She will get ecstatic every 2 turns starting turn 3, which will make her most part physical resistances fatal for the turn. If there is a turn to burst damage, it's then, though to be fair, the maw is also the weaker part of the body, so it might be your target from the start. However, it doesn't use many attacks without ecstatic nor purity, so you'd have to take some unopposed attack to target it fully. Arms can be easy to stagger though, so you could still focus on one of them as well and focus on the maw when it's weak and attacking so you can clash. Once she gets under 50% HP though, she gets purity, giving her binds, damage up, and making all her physical resistances fatal on all parts. At this point, you don't really care what you are hitting unless you have a setup. Her weaknesses are Wrath and Pride, which makes Poise setup from first phase pretty valuable, and Burn has quite a bit of those with Dark Flame as well. Her maw is always weak to Pierce, but it's the only part in all fight to be weak to it, and her resistances will quickly change afterwards, so up to you to base yourself on it to rush down the maw at the start of the phase or not. If you feel confident for the first phase, you can use it to set up for the second, like a full stop snipe for example. Alright, that was way more than enough time talking about Cromer. Now let's get to another infamous fight, as we fight My Form MTs and its goons. Apparently one of the strongest abnormalities. First of all, if you think you're skipping it like you do in MD, well, good luck. Is what I would have liked to say. High damage multipliers can go through 10 protection, though it might have a problem for the whole HP pool. However, absolutely nothing prevents you from using statuses, so you probably know what to do. Still, let's first talk about its base mechanics if you ever have to go through them. While any of its allies lives, it will get 10 protection on its 2 parts, the Buddha Murti and the Stone Seat. So the first goal is getting rid of the goons. The Murti is the part you have to care about the most, since it's where its most important skills and passives are. It will use skills giving karma to its target on hit, or to one of its minions on clash lows. Karma increases damage taken, and more importantly, kill its owner when above 108. Yeah, that's karma. It can be transferred when hitting a target, so you can transfer it if you get some, and the enemies can give it back to you. So the 2 ways to deal with its minions are either burst them down really quickly, or let them accumulate karma till they die. I say quickly because they recover all HP every turn, so if you wanna burst them, especially with stagger help, make sure you do it in 1 turn. They all have 1 physical and scene weakness and 1 resistance of each, different for each one. Guido is Wrath Blunt, Ada Pierce Envy, reminds me of good times, and a Roach / Sloth. You might be able to rush down one of them, but maybe not all 3, especially the manager or Guido being tankier, though with enough strong skill trees of each, with staggers as well, you probably can. You have to consider that you will have to deplete MFE's HP as well, and it's blunt and lust weak. Well, the blunt part doesn't matter too much, since you can easily break the Murti, making it vulnerable to hull. Talking about breaking the Murti, doing so will make it go berserk, hitting indiscriminately, randomly, with several skills for a turn before regenerating, as well as giving Karma and Fragile to an ally, so a good time to rake Karma and potentially burst down one of them. Every few turns, depending on Anatman turns, it will use Pranya Paramita, which is pretty scary to clash against, and will target the unit with the most Karma, be it an ally or us, drastically increasing Karma on hit. And good thing, it's now unbreakable, so Karma gain is unavoidable. If it's on you, good luck. If it's on an ally though, you can consider them gone, so that's a good payoff to letting Karma build on enemies. Once you've got rid of all its allies, you just have to build up MFE as usual. You can now dump your excess Karma on it if you have any, and you can try to gain more by letting it eat you, but as if it would be faster than just rushing it, not too likely. There is a check that you would rather succeed as well to stagger it, and to not stagger your Sinner. As for teams you would want for the fight, as I said, it depends if you want to rush a minion or keep for MFE. AoE isn't important here, except maybe to help rushing MFE, which has two parts. However, statuses might be a bit slow to apply to everyone one by one, and just going for Karma might be faster. Poison Charge are obviously not concerned, and charge IDs with a good number of envy skills can probably make quick work of Ada to remove her from the fight early on, and maybe another one with enough slash or blunt damage. Otherwise, MFE is weak to Lust, so bleed-related IDs are nice against it, and though the Round Burn and Tremor tend to have a mix of Wrath, Lust and Sloth, which can be nice if you wanna kill several targets manually. Having high clashes is probably the most important thing overall anyway. Now after all this beautiful talk, the most efficient way to deal with it is definitely with Rupture or Sinking. Since it will take all of the damage from those, entirely skipping its mechanics with a strong enough infliction is very simple, and a bunch of corroded Ramshanks targeting the stone seat, followed by a sinking deluge, is the fastest strat possible. Just be careful about the ton of unopposed attacks in those cases. In any case, it's the last fight, so you can try to dump your ego resources into powerful skills, and you can let your sinners die even more than before. Alright, that's all the stops. I'm gonna conclude with a bit of general advice. First, you can probably clear the railway with a single team anyway. If you can't invest in much, having a strong team to carry you through everything is a good way to clear it, and maybe under the turn limit as well. Second, due to the number of targets in most fights, even boss fights with a lot of them having several parts, bringing high AoE damage is advised. You can use a different support ID on every fight, so don't hesitate if you need some, like a game-breaking Malfaust or funny level 1 LCE 5 for sacrifice strats. Talking about those, they are a very good way to get a bunch of ego resources if you need some, including stuff like LCE Faust Suicide Bombing. Since your IDs get revived and healed every station, don't hesitate. Sloth, Pride and Wrath are good elements for the railway, and there are quite a few IDs and ego that would be relevant in most of it. I mentioned for Tremor with Scorch or Hemorrhage, somewhat usable for Wrath or Lust to add damage from Burn and Bleed. I often mention to take IDs or egos based on each scene, so here is a small summary of more relevant choices. Usually they include IDs whose one of their primary damage source is the relevant scene, so often skill 2 or 3, since you often don't need more than a skill 3 from a few IDs with a few egos to deal with the station. In Wrath, Firefist Gregor for consistent damage, Aisho is Cliff for nice AoE, LC Faust for huge AoE if you can set it up, same for Summer Soul skill 3 if you can counter early to get Savage ammo, and use S3 when 3 or less are remaining. For egos, Force Match Flames if you can use them, Mother Blossom Star, or even Iniken's Trail. Last is mostly based around Bloodfiends, with Kurokomos for some single target damage if you can, with your enemy Kalas as well with build up. Sloth includes a few IDs with Molautis with their discard, but mostly relies on Reverb for single target damage, and Crushbound Past and Umbrian Glory for AoE. Gluttony is Aisho's, and that's enough, with a few egos like Tears and Red Sheet. It's not the most present weakness in this railway, but with their high slash amount, they find a lot of places to shine again. Gloom is mostly from singing itself, with the usual gang with Echoes and Ramshank, with one Nisang, and Wild Hunt skill 3 being very useful, as well as Solemn Element for single target, or Binds for AoE. Pride IDs mostly include poise options from Blade Lineage and full stops, as well as some A shows filling the slot. From Eagles though, a setup sacrifice with Spellbreath or Surakaja is great, as well as a few cheap to remain oneself for high damage. Finally, for the few NV weaknesses, QH Dawn is great, as well as other charge IDs. With Eagles support from Telepole or Electric Screaming for charge, or for damage with In the Name of Love and Hate, they can be great. Bringing the middle duo for consistent NV res can help them as well, mostly Dawn. As for the 3 types, I already mentioned a lot from scenes and are overall less important than those, so as a quick summary, A shows and Blade Lineage for slash, with those for AoEs, and a few Eagles as well. Pierce include full stops and blood fiends, or Seas and P quads. Here are a few Eagles as well. Blunt has a few AoEs possible, and a few powerhouses as well. Eagles got a nice recent addition, but got a few options. Alright, that's enough for this video. As a last note, there is no additional rewards for clears before next season, or time limit, except end of service, so take your time clearing it. Of course, with time more options will be available, will be higher level, and power creep will happen, so it should be even easier to clear. Ah, man, I can't wait to see speedruns being broken again after Malphos 2.0 comes out, and you have to spend 200 tries per session for a nice skill bag. Yep, I'm definitely not doing it. And that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Final message, well, this railway was fine. I would have liked a bit more balancing and mostly making the dog and MFE actually menacing or relevant, but at least some, like everything there or Glupo, got nice glow-ups. Though I hope they will keep going into the waves way, like they've been doing for Railway 4 and 5 going forward. When we ever get a new railway, that is. Otherwise, as I said, I haven't done many videos, though season and keywords reviews are coming before next Kanto. Anyway, I'll just give more news as usual on the community tab, so subscribe and everything. In any case, see you next time, and keep your sanity high in this slow descent into the inferno.